Resident Evil 6. It's taken a while, but we finally come to the most hated game in all of Resident Evil, at least in the main series. This game has been absolutely covered in controversy ever since it was released back in 2012. The entire Resident Evil community seemed to hate this game with a passion straight from the get-go and calling it the worst thing to ever be released. And as it always seems with me, I disagree with this opinion to an extent. And with that statement, I'm going to get right into it before my head is placed on a pike, so I can actually explain why I kind of enjoyed this entry in the survival horror series. The first thing I want to say is that I played this game in co-op with Alan again, just like RE5, so I have no idea what the AI is like, but as with that review, I recommend co-op nonetheless. It's just more fun to go through this game with a friend rather than some shite-brains companion who wastes every single bullet they can find. Resident Evil is a series that always continues to change, from fixed camera to first person, survival horror to action, genuinely scary to shooty bang bang and back again. Unfortunately, when Resident Evil went all shooty bang bang, people loved it, and soon Capcom's series of survival horror classics became clones of RE4. Over and over again. Trying to capture that lightning in a bottle. This game is the culmination of that gameplay style, and for most is what pushed the series over the edge into the realm of ruined. But I personally believe that RE4 was the catalyst and that RE6 is just a natural progression for the path the series took. And I have to say, it's not that bad. Sometimes. Yeah, sure, this isn't what I think of when I think of Resident Evil, but this isn't a bad game for the most part. I think myself and Alan came to a very similar conclusion on this game. It's not a bad game. It's a bad Resident Evil game. And that, I feel, is why it is so hated. It completely drops all attempts of horror and inventory management and goes for all-out action. Very similar to the last two entries, but this time it's turned all the way up to 11. The game never stops moving, keeping up a lightning pace and keeping you in constant combat arenas with very little actual exploration of locations. This is a problem, as it completely breaks the pacing of the game because you're always fighting and there are next to no quiet segments. This also meant that after playing just 2 chapters of any campaign, I was exhausted from the constant shooting and fighting. This is one of the games that made me realise that quiet moments in games are important so that you don't get tired of combat. The game is also very linear, having no areas where backtracking is needed. This is in total contrast to early games in the series that rely on these elements. That is exactly what I was talking about earlier with it being a bad Resident Evil. Keeping on the negative end of the spectrum, the HUD to me is horrible, but it is cool that each character gets their own design. The game is separated into 4 campaigns with 2 characters each: Leon and his new partner Helena, Chris and another BSAA agent Piers, Jake, who's joined by Sherry Birkin from RE2, and Ada Wong, who's with an agent, but that's only for co-op. These stories are all connected but are played individually, where other games would have you switching characters throughout one campaign. Games like Black Ops 2 come to mind. And if you manage to get all mixed up in the order of the events, you can look at the cutscenes on the main menu to see them all in chronological order. Leon's campaign was by far the best we played. It was the most coherent, most varied, and the most fun overall, with all the details of the plot being unknown to us. It had some of the most Resident Evil areas to fight in, and included very small elements of horror at times. This seems to be where most of the effort in terms of story and character went. Chris's campaign was a fun time as well, but had some frustrating moments towards the end. Seeing similar events from his perspective, and how they affected Leon's campaign, was actually kinda cool. The gunplay here was more satisfying, as for the most part we were fighting more than just average corpses, and some of the enemies required us to switch up our strategies from time to time. And Jake's campaign. Fuck Jake. Jake's campaign was by far the worst we've played. Such a clusterfuck, incoherent, least connected to the main plot bullshit mess, and things that seemed to just happen because reasons. We met up with the other two campaigns only a few times, but most of the time spent with Sherry and Jake was away from the rest of the plot, so it felt like a disconnected mess compared to everything else. Also, some of the levels in this campaign were just boring as fuck. Too big, or included really dumb level gimmicks that limited one of the characters, or had that stupid nemesis-like encounter fucking forced onto you. The final campaign was Ada Wong. This originally was unlocked after beating the rest, but after a patch was able to be accessed from the start. Which is kinda shit, because it's meant to tie up what Ada was doing during all the campaigns, meaning that it should be the finale, rather than just another campaign to play through. We didn't play past the first chapter, it didn't offer anything new, and by this point we were just fucking sick of looking at this game. The game has a bunch of effort put into Leon's campaign, and then it seemed from there that the quality just slowly declined as we went on. I believe the reason for this is that Leon's story is the main plot that everyone else seems to fit around. We get the most detail here, and the closest thing to a traditional RE narrative as you'll find in this game. It has some pretty cool fights and set pieces, including this one that I'll just let you watch in full.
Chris? Leon!
Chris is too busy wallowing in self-doubt and brooding to be that interesting, and Jake is just a total tosspot. Leon's campaign isn't perfect though. One particular boss fight comes to mind. The fight against Deborah. This is just fucking disgusting. Resident Evil has a certain level of horny to it, but most of the time it's moderate or the odd sly joke, but this boss fight turns the horny factor all the way up. It also does this for the weird Ada clone shit, which I'll come back to in a minute. Deborah's boss fight is pretty standard for an RE game, but she activates the arm she hits you with by touching herself up. Ugh. This is just wrong, given the context that she was turned into this monster against her will. So this is a part of the game that really hasn't aged well. Back to what I said about Ada clones, the whole reason an Ada clone even exists is so that the main villain Simmons can have a version of Ada Wong that will fuck him. Yep. This guy sacrificed tons of women, including Deborah, in order to make a fuck toy version of Ada Wong. Dude, just go on the hub or the RE subreddit and you'll find some videos or comics to live that fantasy out. No need to go through all of this. Leon's ending is pretty satisfying, with him and Helena flying away in a helicopter after killing Simmons and watching him form the Umbrella logo. I don't really have a lot to say about the other campaigns, since they just get worse as we go. Jake's has some weird shit going on with showing us that Sherry is all grown up since we last saw her, by having her strip and wear a skimpy outfit. The fuck is this game's problem with being as horny as a 15-year-old? And Chris's campaign has no instances of horny that I can find apart from the numerous fanfictions online, so he's in the clear. The ending to Chris's campaign is okay, with him being in the middle of the ocean and picked up by a helicopter. Jake's, however, has him putting on some sunglasses and telling everyone to get weskered as he drives off into the sunset. The fuck is this ending? I initially came into this review hoping for something that was halfway decent, but writing this script after playing most of the game, I can't find a whole lot. It's not the worst thing I've ever played, but my god, it comes so close. The gunplay is satisfying and Leon's campaign is pretty cool. Chris is playable, but the rest is just a fucking state. I'm so glad that RE7 went in a completely different direction and came back to horror, because another one of these RE4 clones would have been fucking horrendous and sent the series even further into its nosedive into shit. I cannot in good faith recommend this game, despite enjoying 2/4 of it. It's just not worth it. This isn't an R case like RE5 where it wasn't liked because it wasn't RE4. This isn't good, and I don't know how many times I can say that without repeating myself. I probably already have. So with all of that said, I'd like to thank you all for watching and waiting a long ass time for this review. I don't know when I'll review another RE game. While I do love the series, there are some entries I'm not looking forward to. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, remember to hit that subscribe button, like the video and smack the notification bell, consider subbing to my Patreon and checking out my socials, links in the description, only if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.